Hey, and we're back for another episode of the Grown and Greek podcast to have another wonderful conversation that I'm so excited about. And before we get started, I want to make sure that you guys are listening, following us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Blue Sky, YouTube, and of course, if you know of any of the over 2.5 million members of the Divine Nine that you think should be on the Grown and Greek podcast, please hit up my DM on Instagram. I would love to talk to them at Grown and Greek Podcast. Now, today, my guest is someone that's very near and dear to my heart. We go way back. Our college days here in Alabama. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But to let you know a little bit about her, she's a native of Fairfield, Alabama. She's a graduate of HBCU Miles College with dual degrees in early childhood and in elementary education. She's a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And 17 years into her career as an educator, she elevated her passion and founded I See Me Inc. Please, everyone, welcome my good friend. And we'll talk about something really, really funny that's associated with our last names. But her name is Miss Devon Frazier. Hey, Devon.
Hey, Faith.
How are you?
I'm well, and you?
I'm doing great. So I'm super excited. You know, it's almost I guess a full circle moment. That's crazy that we've known each other for so many years. I went to school together at the University of Montevallo, and at this moment are talking about things that have driven not only our passions but our futures. And I'm so proud of the work that you've been doing with I See Me Inc. But I want everybody else to know about it and how wonderful you are, and then we'll sidebar and talk about um, our last names and how we are like super connected with that. But anyway, how did I See Me Inc. come about?
Well, it came about because of a student that I taught.
Okay.
Before I get into that, I typically say it started in kind of like a trifold type of moment, or I guess you could say. But the main reason why it started was because of a student that I taught in the fourth grade. He struggled with literacy, and I continued to work with him where we were able to grow him where he was able to pass the fourth grade, but I knew that he was still going to need a lot of support as he continued to matriculate through school. As he matriculated, he would get in trouble and so forth. I would run into him from time to time, and he would be in trouble. But he always would hide from me if he was doing something wrong. Like if he was smoking or drinking or doing something, he would hide it from me. He didn't want me to see him in that light. He was one of all of my children are special to me, but he was one of my special babies. And I'll never forget, I ran into he and his mom at the courthouse. I had jury duty. And his mom said, I know, right? His mom
Okay.
said it was hoping that I would be on his trial, which I knew I couldn't do that, but she was hoping that I would be on his trial. And I looked at him and I called him my gumdrop because he was so petite when he was in the fourth grade. And I said, Gumdrop, what did you do? Like, why are you here in court? What's going on? And he looked down and said, shooting into an occupied vehicle. And I said, baby, don't you know it would break my heart if I saw that someone took your life or you took somebody's life. If I turned on the news and was to see that you were in trouble like that. And I scolded him and everything. And his mom, stood by and was like, get on to him or whatever. Sometime later, I find out that a friend and classmate of mine was murdered. And he was one of the ones that was charged with the murder. Now, he was not convicted, but my thought was, God, what could I have done to have saved my friend and this student that I held so dear to my heart? And I learned more about what I called the illiteracy to prison pipeline. And I knew that was my niche, was literacy. And so I started working to do things that I felt that could save our children through literacy. And from that, I went from doing things as a classroom teacher, just for my class, then for my grade level, then the school, and it just kind of ballooned from there, where we now have ICME.
Wow. Should I ask how he's doing today? Okay.
So, he was murdered a couple of years ago,
Hmm.
and so that just
Hmm.
amplified.
The
Oh
mission. The
gosh,
mission.
my mission.
Yeah.
So, again, I just want to be able to save as many children as I can, because there's such a strong correlation. Gosh, Faith, oh,
I'm
there's
sorry,
such a strong correlation
but
between
it's a
literacy.
necessary conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There's such a strong correlation between literacy and the prison system.
Hmm.
And so, gosh, stop it, Devin. And so, yeah, so he lost his life a couple of years ago. Yeah.
So would you say that because I understand the mission of I See Me Inc., but the gravity that literacy has on the future effects of children's lives have it has changed your life.
It has.
But could you speak to that importance? I don't know if I'm really asking that question correctly, but um what are the steps? Like where does it need to start? Like, how do we combat even that possibility of, something like that happen? Because that's one young man, but there are hundreds, thousands of children who are, living in disparities like that need, and parents and resources need to be there, and we need to develop, like, where can the work start, especially with I See Me Inc., but where does it need to start?
Well, as a parent, it first begins actually before that child even takes his first breath. So just reading to your child, even when it's within your womb.
Hmm.
Um, Once you have the child, reading to the child as an infant, allowing the child to understand the connection between these letters on this page and the words that you're speaking, allowing them to grow their vocabulary, to have this robust vocabulary, because they're hearing these different words that you normally wouldn't hear just in everyday speech. Hearing them in stories that you would read, allowing them to be exposed, understanding the connection between these books, and there's a world outside of your limited little area that you grow up in, your little neighborhood, your home, and so forth. Building empathy for one another, and people who don't look like you. That's what reading does. And the
Hmm.
connection, it frustrates me sometimes when I hear people say that they use the statistics from fourth grade test scores to build prisons. That's not really true. There's nothing that shows that they go into a school and say, well, there's 10 people not reading on grade level this fourth grade class, so we're going to build 4 or 10 cells. That's not how it really works. But there is such a strong correlation between the two. 85% of children who become interfaced with the juvenile court system are functionally illiterate.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
70% of those who are in the prison system are struggle with literacy as well, functionally illiterate as well. And 60% of those are people of color. So
Wow.
not 70% of the whole that are struggling with literacy, but 60% of people overall in prison are people of color. And so because of that, the odds are very high that connects back to children who look like us. And that's why it's so important for us to put books in the hands of children, to read with them, to expose them to a world outside of what they'll typically see, so that they can understand that they could be so much more than what they see when they turn on television, when they turn on Instagram or TikTok and things like that. It's so much more out there than that.
So there's and I know you're aware, but there's a 1.2, I think, 3 something $billion 4,000 bed prison that's currently being built, that's going to be named for the governor of Alabama. I am completely in utter disbelief that so much money is being put into a place to house what you just said, people that are unaware of their possibilities because they are illiterate. But not only that, the first allotment of money that was given for this prison to be built has been surpassed by another millions of dollars. I think the initial allotment was like 200 million or something, and now it's up to 1 point whatever billion dollars. Keeping in mind the statistics of those fourth grade readers, or readers that have that inability. Devon, how can we combat? I mean, what needs to happen? Because there seems to be a plan already in place to, if you will, target people for these prisons. Like what in-depth, studies or whatever have you done? And, what is some of the work that I See Me Inc. is, doing to try to help that? Because it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, we know that prisons are a business.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order for your business to thrive, you're going to have to be able to feed that pipeline. There are investors and money that are being placed in there that in order for them to see a return on their investment, they're going to have to ensure that those beds are filled. Now, what we can do, if we know what the statistics say, I'm one of those people who love data, love statistics, because you can read so much into that. As the data I just gave, another fact is 2/3 of students who cannot read proficiently by the end of fourth grade will either end up in jail or on welfare. So we know that fourth grade is targeted in that way. We need to start putting as much efforts as we can from birth to fourth grade to ensure that pipeline is dismantled. We have within the state the Alabama Literacy Act. And right now, the way it reads is that if our children are not reading on grade level by the third grade, that they could run the risk of failing the third grade. I understand to an extent why that is, but then I don't. I get that they've put that in place to ensure that the schools are doing all and the parents are doing all they can because of that statistic. But it baffles me, if that is a law, why would we put so much money on the prison side than on the educational side to provide resources and things that families need? Our schools now are teaching the science of reading to teachers because now we understand the way the brain works when it comes to learning how to read, learning prints and sound and so forth. We understand that. Even from my now 23 years in education, the way that I learned how to read as a child, the way that I learned how to teach reading when I first began teaching, and the way that I've learned to teach reading now are totally different.
Hmm.
And so imagine as a parent that a child is coming home with homework or coming home to read, and you don't know what resources are, don't have those tools in your tool belt to assist your child at home. Well, what do? Well, the law says that we're to send home basically this packet. So these are things that you could do at home to help your child. But what if mama struggles? What if
Mm.
daddy struggles to read?
Mm.
What if they just don't have the time to sit down and read all through these paperwork to understand these are some things that I could do, or even I could read it, but I still don't get it. So one of the things that we do, we provide workshops for parents, and we show parents these are just easy, simple little games and things that you can do while you're cooking or while you're in the car to help your child be able to read more proficiently.
So
Those are some things that we could do, but again, it's a business. So
now, would you say that those programs or those workshops are easily um, able to be start up, locally? If just say, obviously we're members of the D9 and we have, resources, even some of the chapter houses or, stuff like that. Are those initiatives that, could be tapped into easily to try to help the mission of, literacy?
So what we do is we tap into those resources that we have available readily at hand. A lot of members of D9 are educators.
Yeah.
So that's a readily available resource that you can reach out to. Some of these teachers that have been trained in the science of reading. You have a lot of people who work for the State Department in regards to being literacy specialists or reading specialists. We could reach out to those. Hey, would you come in and put on a workshop for these parents so that they have resources and things they can use at home to help their children? Um, I don't want to say it's fairly simple because it's not,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, it does take financial resources as well to be able to do those things. I just think that at the end of the day, we know that it is a problem. We know that ultimately, as we age, these are going to be the children that will be taking care of us. So, what do we do to ensure their futures as well as our own? So, reaching out to, like I said, those people that we know that are around us who are trained in those areas, um, donating, even if you say, hey, I don't know what to do, but I may have the financial resources, or maybe I have a location that you could use for a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Here, you have this place for free. Well, here, I'll offer free food as a way to get parents to want to come out to receive these resources. I think that we all need to kind of put our heads together. I always say that I never say that what we do is the end all, you know, to fix this issue. But I think that overall, it's like a puzzle, and everyone holds different puzzle pieces. I know that I see me as my puzzle piece. Your puzzle piece is this platform and other platforms like this that you've used throughout the years. Someone else's platform may be, again, I own a location that you could use for free to host these workshops. I know that on my calendar, I usually don't have anything on Mondays. Maybe on Monday nights, you can host an event here maybe once a month for free to invite parents out. Someone may be a chef and say, well, hey, I'll make even just sandwiches or whatever in order for parents to want to come out. I think once we all kind of put our heads together and those resources that we do have, we could we could work to create the picture that we want to see for our community and our children.
Well, that's definitely, like you said, one of the missions of, the Grown and Greek podcast is to bring folks together. So it sounds like, you have a blueprint. It sounds like we need to have a think tank and, hey, make this happen and keep getting this message out. And, I don't want to hammer this next topic, but we definitely have to brush over it a little bit. with what's currently, happening, and all of the rumors and the anticipation about what's going to be with the Department of Education from the federal level. You don't have to go into deep detail, but uh,
I know.
what is your, what are your thoughts about that, and how it will affect, literacy resources? How can we get ahead of, anything that may be of detriment to our kids and their futures?
Um, it scares me like no other, because I don't think that we understand why the Department of Education was even created, how long it's been that they've been trying to um, dismantle it, and what falls under the umbrella as a whole. So quickly, the Department of Education was created because education truly was not separate but equal. So that's number one why it was created. Okay. They've been trying to dismantle the Department of Education since 84. So now we have this perfect storm that we're seeing, where we run the strong risk of not having the Department of Education. So when you think about things like if you have a child who's disabled, that falls under the Department of Education. If you have a school that receives Title I funds, what are Title I funds? Those are those funds that comes from the federal level to try to create an even playing field, so to say, amongst the different schools. It allows the schools to pay for different resources that they may not have had the funds to purchase. A lot of schools, in order to create smaller class sizes, they use that money to pay for teacher units. A whole host of things. And so it scares me to see what could ultimately happen when you end the Department of Education. Even something as lunch, free lunch. Right now, none of our kids pay for breakfast or lunch. Think about how many children could go hungry. Because yes, you have a lot of kids who come to school for breakfast and lunch.
And
Even in the summertime.
they're not just Black and brown kids.
No, they're not. And I'm not speaking about just Black and brown children, right. Period. Even right. When you think about those areas in the Black Belt, or those rural areas, that money helps those children in those schools be able to receive an education. And I won't lie and say that it's equal to, but it's a whole lot better than it would be if that funding was not there. So it scares me because I don't know what it would look like. I don't know if this is going to push us all the way back to where things were when you had Brown versus the Board of Education. I can't speak on that, but the thought alone scares me, because I know ultimately what the funding does for our children as a whole. And when you take that away, we already see in our community the crime and things within our communities right now. And I just spoke about how with literacy, just on literacy, how that connects to the prison system. Because if a child can't read, no one has a child and says when they have a child, when my child grows up, I want them to become a part of the criminal justice system. Unless they become an attorney or a judge or a police officer, something like that. But you don't typically say that. And so, because you don't have these children and look at these children thinking that, they grow up, and when they start struggling in school with literacy connects to everything else. So because I can't read, K3 usually is I'm learning to read. 3 on is I'm reading to learn. So because I did not learn to read, I can't read to learn. So I'm going to struggle in every subject area because everything connects back to literacy. Those children don't want to go to college, which is fine. It's hard for them to find a career. They have to take ASVAB tests to go into the military. So what are they left to do? Oftentimes it's some form of crime. And my fear is that when we lose that money in the school system, crime rates are going to continue to rise. And we already have spoke about the beds that they've already created.
Allotted,
It's available. Yeah. So
well,
it scares.
Yeah. In the words of our forever First Lady, Michelle Obama, it's time to do something. And it's just it's a call out, but it's legit. It's real. And I'm encouraged. It is scary, but I'm encouraged by the work that you're doing with I See Me Inc. and what you've stated today, now on this podcast. And I hope that we as a collective and as a community are listening and know, number one, that we can do something, but we got to do it together. We got to do it as a community. There's no way that we cannot. One person has resources, but if we put them all together and we start early, we can make the difference. So I'm encouraged by what you're doing and appreciate it very much. But let's shift a little bit and be a little more lighthearted. And I talked at the top about us being having the same last name, but I never really paid attention until you brought up one day. I don't know if it was joking or whatever, that we have the same last name, and same last name, Frazier. And we've always said from that moment or whatever that we were cousins.
Yep.
But and it's so ironic that we went and discovered each other at the same university and all of that. But then you left me and you went to Miles College, which I ain't mad, because you went and did it for the culture and all of that good stuff. But let's go back to that time when you were at Miles College, which is in your native city of Fairfield, Alabama. And didn't you teach too in the Fairfield City Schools? Did you? Is that right?
Did. That's
okay.
Right. I love Fairfield.
Okay. Kind of, talk about that and like some of the highlights, and some of the, because I know some of the accolades that you have, but talk about that and just how you've been able to make a name for yourself, start your organization, and how big of an impact you've been able to make on a local level, which I think is the most important thing.
What's funny is it's hard for me to talk about that like that.
Well, that's what it is, though.
I know, but it is. It's hard for me to talk about those things. I mean, here's some of the awards and things right here behind me.
Yeah, you want me to read? You want me to read some of the stuff? Because I can, but one of well, a couple. Let me state a couple. You were named in 2021 Birmingham Business Journal's Women to Watch. You were a finalist for the 2022 CEO of the Year by the Journal, and in 2024, which is just recently, you were an honoree for This Is Alabama's Women Who Shape the State. So, sound to me like you need to, kind of pop it a little bit and, be okay with talking about it.
I guess for me, it's hard to do that because genuinely, I don't do it for that. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. Now, let me not say I'm grateful for the accolades, but it's from such a pure space. It's
Mhm.
hard for me to say, "Oh yeah, I got this award," and it's hard for me to kind of talk about it. I'm grateful. I never in a million years would have thought that I would be in this space because initially, when I started even kind of thinking outside the box in regards to education, I remember going to a boss and sharing some big ideas I had because I always have these big ideas and I don't know how we're going to get done, but I'm like, it's going to happen. But I have these big ideas. And I remember my boss telling me that I dreamed too big
Ooh.
and that like, it was like somebody sucked all the air out of me.
Mhm.
And so for a while, I would have these ideas and these thoughts and I would do nothing with them. Because I thought that I was in over my head and I was dreaming too big. And I can't say what happened that allowed me to, well, no, you know what? I do know what happened. That kind of pushed everything past what I was doing for my class and like for the school. I did those things, but I never would have thought that I would be doing things throughout the state. I never would have thought that. But I think that what pushed me to even think that I could even do those things was I remember teaching a sixth grade class, and I don't believe in homework. I did not give homework at
Where
that point. Now, not early.
where were you? God.
Okay, so this is why I say that there's no data this that proves that homework helps. That's number one. Number two, I just feel like you've been in school for 8 hours,
Hmm.
and I'm seeing you home to do more homework. I mean, when do you get that time to be a child? So with that being said, the only homework I gave was you had to read every night for 20 minutes. And you had to write a little bit about what you've read because there is data that connects back to that. And then I would give a project, and they would have like a month or so to do the project. But I allowed them time in class to work as well because I knew that the type of children that I taught sometimes could go home and they may not have water or may not have power. So why should I fail you because you didn't do an assignment and it was a circumstance that was out of your control? So I just stopped giving it. So with all that being said, I would make my kids read for 20 minutes every night. And so a lot of them said that they didn't have books at home. So I had this very eclectic classroom library, and I would let them check out the books from my classroom library. And I had kids that were like my librarians, and they would sign them out and check them out and so forth. And remember one day looking at some of my books, and they were just tattered and torn and worn. And I treat my kids like I keep calling my kids because they are like my babies or my kids. I treat them like I treat my daughter. And so I turned around, I was fussing, and I'm getting on to them, and I just heard like God say, "Stop and look." So I stopped and I looked, and I realized that the books weren't torn, like they didn't tear them up. They were just overly used. You know how you use a book for so long, or you read something for so long, and the pages are like falling out of the book or bent and stuff like that. Those were the things that were going on with the books. And so I decided to do a book drive for all the kids in my school. And I want them all to go home with at least 3 books over the summer because the kids, like I said, didn't have books at home.
Mhm.
And one of the strongest indicators of student success is the number of books in the home.
Wow.
So, I told you I tie everything back to something I read to data. So I did this book drive, and initially I was like, "Oh God," I'm crying, like I'm not getting enough books, Lord. What I'm gonna do, Lord? I got to make sure these babies get these books. I'm just upset. Well, AL.com, one of our mutual friends, found out about it, and AL.com wrote an article about it, and it blew up. literally, we ended up getting books from literally all around the world, as far away as Ireland.
Wow.
And because of that, I kind of stepped back and said, well, maybe I should do something more with this. And some of my friends called and was, like, Debbie, you should do more, and so forth. And kind of had to walk me through what do I do? Like, I was an educator. I wasn't in business. How do you create a nonprofit? How do you create this business? And so I'm grateful that I had friends. I always say, don't burn bridges. And so I had people that I could reach out to, or who reached out to me and taught me through the process of creating a nonprofit organization, how to create a 501c3, what, like, anything, the inner workings of a business. I didn't know how to do those things. And so I'm grateful that I have had those people to guide me as we went through that. So to me, those people that helped me through that, even to this day, those are some of my biggest awards. And I say that those people are because those are people that I had known for years. And I used to think, well, why do I know this person? I'm just a classroom teacher. Why do I know this CEO? Why do I know this president? Why do I know this? And I will always be put in these leadership programs. And I would be sitting in the classroom looking at everyone like, why am I in this leadership? This is a DA. Why am I in here with you? Or this is a VP at this place. Like, and I will always shrink and think, why am I in here? But I never burned those bridges. And I am a big believer of maintaining good relationships. And so because of those relationships that I maintain, I was able to reach out to them, or some of them just reached out to me when they read the article and helped me through everything, even to this day. And so to me, I'm grateful for these awards and those accolades. But those people, even you, Faith, Faith, we go way back.
Mm-hmm.
We never burned bridges. We've always kept in touch.
We cousins. We can't.
We can't vote.
We can't vote.
Don't we look alike? So those are some of my biggest accolades, because they could have easily seen something in me and walked away, or been turned off by something I did or said, or the way I carried myself. And that didn't happen. So I'm grateful that I was able to maintain those relationships and add more to that list of people that have been able to help me grow as a person. So yeah, those are the accolades I would like to talk about.
So, what do you want your legacy to be?
I would like my legacy to be the lives that I've touched, the children's lives that I've impacted. That's what I would like, that to be a living legacy.
Hmm.
Because I've changed this person's life. It then took them from this place to a whole nother place that was able to impact their children, and so on and so on. That's what I would love for my legacy to be. And then my biggest legacy, my daughter. I would love for her to see the hard work and the passion and dedication that I put into I See Me, and in turn place that same level into whatever it is that God places on her, for her to for her next chapter, for her chapter to be, for her to understand that it's okay to think outside the box. It's okay to care about your community and care about others, and to use those gifts to impact the community, to create the community that she wants to see.
So, you want her to see herself in you through the work that you're doing.
Exactly.
Cool. I think you're on the right track. Cause,
All right, cuz.
well, I again, Devon, I'm I'm super, super honored, for you to take the time out to talk to me on this level. It's serious because we do serious things. We do serious work within the D9. Grown in Greek is all about, having a heart for service, number one, but connecting dots, connecting resources, connecting stories to share about just the grandiose excellence that we have amongst us. And thank you so much for being a part of this journey and this podcast. And I really hope that the nuggets that you've shared on it will be used for good. And before we go, please, please, please share how people can get involved with what you're doing, where to find you, what's next, what projects you have coming up, and the whole nine.
Okay. If you would like to find out more about ICD Inc., visit www.I, the letter I, SEEMEINC.org to find out more about our programs and those things that we have going on within the community, as well as on all social media platforms. I see me, INC. If you would like to find out more about things like our literacy summit and so forth, all that information will be on the website, as well as you find in your heart to want to donate to help us continue the work that we do. Just visit our website and there's a tab, donation tab. Feel free. We would love it if you would if you would donate to help us continue to do the work that we do within the community. Two things really quick, if it's okay.
Yeah.
First thing is when you look at our, before I said that, we were very purposeful, very intentional in everything that we do with ICME. And so ICME, the name itself is important because we want our children to understand and know that they're worth reading about and seeing in literature. So we want our children to see themselves in the books that they read. That's the first thing. The second thing is if you look at our logo, there is a profile, a face profile that's on the logo. And I forgive me if I mispronounce his last name because I've heard it both ways. But if you've ever, are you familiar with George Steiny?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he was the youngest to be executed in the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
He was a little boy that was hanging outside with his friends, and two little girls that were white came by and asked where they could find some flowers, to pick some flowers. He pointed to wherever it was, and the little girls didn't come home. He helped in the search to look for the little girls, and they found the girls had been murdered, two little girls. Now, George was very small, very petite for his age. He was 15, very petite. And so they pinned both of the murders on George. Well, they did one of those trials that, it lasted little to no time. They just kind of, again, was all white male jury. They found him guilty and they sentenced him to death. And they basically ran his family out of town. Well, George was so small that they sat him upon books so that he could rise high enough to sit under the hood for the electric chair so that they could take his life. So the profile that's on our logo is actually his profile. And the reason that is so important is those same books they used to lift him to take his life. We want to use those same books to lift children to give them life. Mm. And so that's the connection between our logo and George. So with that being said, we would love it if those who are watching to please donate to help us continue to give life to our children and to our community. And on a lighter note, So what you all may not have known is this is not my first time on a show with Faith. And I don't know if she remembers or not. I know you make that face. So when when Faith was at Montevallo, Faith had a little talk show.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
She had a little talk show when we were at Montevallo. And so we were on the talk show. I wish you could find the tapes. So
Oh
my
my
roommate
God,
and I,
Devin, you are right.
I told you.
Devin.
So my roommate and I were on there, and I don't know why we came up with this little like sorority
Devin.
called Ghetto Gamma Nu.
Devin.
And our colors were neon orange and neon purple or something like that. Remember?
Yes.
Yeah. Ghetto Gamma Nu.
Devin. Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
So you have to find the tape.
Devin.
Yes,
yes, I remember that. You know what? That's crazy because that was like full circle.
Well, like when you said that at the beginning, I thought this is a full circle moment, really.
Full circle, which means that it was meant to be. Okay, let's close because those are. Hey, that's gonna make me shout right there. like for real. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. I wonder if probably not. Maybe hope not. We could find those tapes. Man, that's a long time ago.
Yeah,
but absolutely the most creative like time. No blueprint, just some kids winging it and trying to come up with something that would shape our futures. And look at us now. That is, I know, right? That's wild.
Listen, yes.
And you remember, I remember it now because I remember the room and stuff that we were in the, I can't even remember the mass comm building's name, but I remember that. But dang.
Ghetto Gamma Nu, man.
Girl. And both of us are now Greek and
right.
Look at there.
I mean, look at there.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy. Well, my sister, my cousin, my friend, thank you. Cause this has been, full and you made me want to do a dance, man. That's wild. But thank you so much, Devon Frazier. My salute to you and my pinky to you. You got to give me your mid.
My mid to you.
There we go. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your space, your passion, and your work on the Grown and Greek podcast. And for all of those listening, make sure that you are listening, sharing, liking this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow us, like, comment, share, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Blue Sky, and YouTube at Grown and Greek Podcast. And if you know of anyone of the D9 that you think whose story is just as dynamic as Miss Devon Frazier's, please DM me on my Instagram at Grown and Greek Podcast. Until next time, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You can support Grown and Greek by subscribing to the podcast, shopping our exclusive luxury accessory line, or purchasing books from the D9 Book Club by visiting our website at grownandgreekpodcast.com. Don't forget to like, comment, and share on social media at Grown and Greek Podcast. Thanks for watching.